They say absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton, a 19th century British historian, is credited with that sentiment, but even as far back as 580 BC, humans understood this nature of power. Aesop told us the fable of a hungry, wicked hawk who took the throat of a nightingale as it pleaded for its life. As the nightingale begged the hawk for mercy, it pushed its talons into the nightingale's throat and finished the job. A bird eating a bird. Sound familiar?
By now, everyone's familiar with the story of the Hayabusa. It's been featured enough on this channel, I'd be shocked if you haven't heard me screaming about it. It was the late 1990s, Japan was embroiled in the speed wars, all the big four manufacturers were figuratively and literally racing against each other, and it culminated with this, Suzuki's GSX-R 1300, also known as the Hayabusa.
The word Hayabusa comes from the Japanese word for a peregrine falcon, a bird with an appetite for other birds, and a recorded top speed of over 240 miles per hour in a dive to Earth. Fitting that Honda had named their big bad open-class superbike the Blackbird then, and Suzuki's Hayabusa came stooping down from the heavens to collect its dinner.
In its heyday in the early 2000s, the Busa was an untouchable machine. With 175 horsepower, 1299 cc's of face-melting torque, this thing would do 186 miles per hour. And hey, it gets the Fast and Furious child in me all excited when I look at it.
But this was back in 1999. Open-class superbikes being built by all the big four are a thing of the past. But today, this is how you demonstrate a truly vulgar display of power.
Behold the 21st century's answer to the Hayabusa, Yamaha's championship-winning YZF R1, a superbike with race replica chops and a massive top end to back it up. Released in 1998, the Yamaha R1 was never a contender against the Busa. It was a thoroughbred track weapon that was designed to tear up corners. Back in 1998, it barely made 150 horsepower and featured a top speed of just 168 miles an hour. But times change, and nowadays the R1 is lighter, more powerful, and more advanced than the Hayabusa could ever hope to be.
This thing comes to you with 200 horsepower and a factory warranty from Yamaha. And the best part of all, comes with all these fancy rider modes and electronics to keep you from yeeting yourself into the sun on the way to the office. Man, the progress we've made.
So here's the question we're trying to answer today. If you're looking to fly as close to the sun as possible without getting burned, which one of these machines is going to itch your need for speed better? We're finding out on today's episode of the Expert Bike Giveaway Series.
Everything about the Hayabusa just screams speed. From the swooping lines to the overall stance of the motorcycle, you can just tell it was built to do one thing, and that was to go as fast as possible. And here in the saddle, looking at the tachometer and speedometer, these old school analog gauges with the burnt orange in the background, makes a really nice place to sit if you're looking for that kind of experience. The Busa is not a subtle motorcycle by any means. It goes to the mountaintop and screams at the altar of speed.
Teddy Roosevelt said it was better to speak softly and carry a big stick, and this R1, it does just that. Below 7,000 RPM, this bike's not even awake. You could commute on this bike if you really wanted to, or at least you could if you hated yourself. But once you get it above 7,000 RPM, you can feel that barometric pressure start to drop as a storm of power swells beneath you. The crazy thing is how confidence-inspiring this motorcycle can be. With all its rider modes and safeties, I mean in D mode it barely makes any more power than a 600. But if you're brave enough to venture into A mode, you better come correct.
Come on, Spite. A modes, B modes, C modes, who needs all that when you have Go Fast mode? Twist your wrists and the Busa will send you into another dimension. And if that's not enough, you can slap a turbo on it and it has unlimited potential for power. Because unlike that R1, the Hayabusa has an engine with much lower compression ratios and it never feels stressed. You can turbocharge this thing and have it make north of 400 horsepower if you wanted to. There's a reason why the Hayabusa dominates at both land speed records and the drag strip.
Straight line speed at a drag strip, well that's one thing, but as Yam proved earlier this year, there are few things as horrifying as taking a Hayabusa on the track. Meanwhile, this R1 here, it was born and bred on the front straight of Mugello. If you want to take a turn at damn near triple-digit speeds, it's more than happy to do it. In truth, it's built for the top 1% of riders, and no mere mortal can come close to achieving what this bike is capable of. though it does give you a tantalizing glimpse of what it feels like to be a GP rider.
Alrighty, Spud, I would say I jumped on the R1 to see what all the hubbub is about, but I'm pretty familiar with this bike, and it just never ceases to amaze me how much progress we've made in 20 years. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, I get back on the Busa after riding that in, and it is literally like stepping backwards in time.
Yeah, it's just this perfect time capsule, you know?
Everything from the dashboard to the cable-actuated throttle to just the sound and smell of the bike is from, 15 years ago. It's wild.
Just classic motorcycling, you know? And it's like, that's how we used to have to make big power, but as times change and things evolve, this is where we're at now, and it's unbelievable what you can do with these bikes.
Absolutely.
One thing I noticed as well in the Busa and the R1, I mean, there's no denying it. You're on a machine that weighs about 180 pounds more than mine right now, and you really feel it.
Yeah. There's no spot where this weight disappears. You get it in a corner, you feel the weight. You get it in a straight, you feel the weight. You can't get around the fact that this bike is almost pushing 600 pounds.
Yeah, that's a big boy. That's a big bike. And it just getting on the side over here, the tire on the R1, I don't know, like it goads you into just riding a little bit more quicker. And I mean, I'm already doing probably about 90 right now, you know?
Yep.
Just like that.
But then again, you have to think about the audience of both of these bikes. Does the audience for the Busa want to be, so small, so nimble? Do they want to just take up all the space they can and assert the dominance of the Busa?
Definitely, and I think it's option 2. They want to assert that dominance and show stop and do all that stuff. But man, it's just, one thing we were mentioning as well earlier in the day is how the Hayabusa feels so raw and so analog, whereas the R1, it feels like there's a bit of a very thin plastic film between you and the bike,
Yeah, that computer really does take over, and you can feel it, especially when you start switching the modes around.
Yeah.
There's something about having the bike tell you what you need to be doing. Busa doesn't tell you anything. The Busa's just there for the ride.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just giving you all those ponies and torques right from the get-go, and it's like, well, you better know, I hope you know what you're doing. Yeah, the R1, I think it staggers the power by gear in certain modes. I think if you're in C mode or D mode, like first and second gear feels so gutless, and then third and fourth, it definitely gives you a little bit more punch because it assumes you're going a little bit quicker and you can handle it,
Yep.
I think just, the biggest thing is just sitting here and looking at the dash between the two of them. I mean, I got this TFT display, the MotoGP ergos and looks here. It's just such a cool place to sit.
Agreed. Very much agreed. That bike is just so much, there's more to that bike, despite it being so pared down, than what the Busa gives you. I think it's fitting, though, that we were rolling through Jonestown right there, because that is a very notorious speed trap here on 1431, and it comes to that point where you really can't test the limits of these motorcycles on the street.
No, you really can't. Even first or second gear, I mean, you're pushing 90, 100 miles per hour on both of these bikes,
Then when you put these bikes on a racetrack, there's no comparison.
Oh, there's no comparison, man. Like, this thing will just shred any racetrack you throw at it, whereas the Busa, having taken it on a racetrack, is an exercise in sadomasochism.
And it speaks to what these bikes were meant to do. This is such a piece of history based on coming out of the Speed Wars at full speed with these aerodynamic edges, whereas the R1 is just all about the racetrack.
And it's just interesting how those big open class bikes have, other than the H2, kind of gone by the wayside. We're seeing the market really change, and I think more than the big open class super bikes, we're seeing the sort of cheater leader bikes like Ducati's V4S and the Aprilia 1100 Factory, the RSV4. They're kind of understanding that a lot of guys who buy these leader bikes, they get them as toys. They don't get them as homologated race machines. They're not going to go out to their local club and, jump onto, a super bike and start trying to rip out some laps and win championships. They know that they just want to take them to the track and have some fun, so they bump up the displacement and give you ungodly amounts of power on those other bikes. But the Busa was kind of, those bikes were the first ones to kind of start experimenting with that idea.
With it being an experiment, this bike absolutely succeeded where it wanted to be,
Yeah.
they set out to make the world's fastest straight line motorcycle, and at the time, this was it. It was the king.
Yep.
But regimes rise and fall, times change, and now the R1's out at front.
And I think we're all the better for it. You know, this is a more livable motorcycle. This is an easier bike to ride. And we were talking about it on the way up to the spot we were shooting. And, you know, you could commute with the R1. It's a pretty chill motorcycle, all things considered.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say, Spite, even though we obviously can't do, you know, second, third, fourth gear crazy massive pulls and see which one's faster, because you know what, like, the R1 is faster. Objectively, there's just no denying it. It's a faster machine. But I think what we could do if we get a little open spot up here is do like a fourth gear roll on, a real world acceleration test, and see which bike kind of, you know, ekes out ahead. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Let's do it.
All right, you ready?
Yep. 3, 2,
1.
Holy shit! Did you see right when I got in the power play? I just absolutely walked away from you.
Yeah, it's the textbook example of what these bikes are built to do. Absolutely
That was
textbook.
awesome. Yeah, that was as clear as day as you could see it, the difference between these two bikes. You were right there with me for a good, like, 7 seconds, I would say. Maybe more,
Yeah.
maybe less. I don't know. Around, like, you were pretty much right there with me the whole time.
And then once the Busa just wanted to, it just didn't want to accelerate. It doesn't have that top end rush that the R1
It's so linear.
does.
It's super linear, yeah. And the R1, once I saw it hit 10,000, it just leapt forward.
Yep.
And it wanted to just keep banging gears. That's the crazy part about it. And I got a quick shifter up and down, lift control. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's a giant scooter.
It is. It's just a big, really fast scooter. That's it.
So I'm a little surprised by the results of our drag race, but I'm also not surprised. What do you think?
I think it was literally textbook.
Right.
The fact that the Busa just started out ahead, and then once the R1 got into its power band, it just took off like a shot. It was unstoppable. I could not catch you, no matter what the Busa wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we, like you said, kind of strung it in the Busa's favor for that quite a bit, you know? Did a nice fourth gear roll on, low torque kind of situation, and you know, the R1 just shoots right ahead of it once it gets the power band, you know?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the Busa doesn't really give you that insane sensation of speed like I thought it would, honestly.
Yeah, for those folks at home, I seriously thought that the Busa was just going to feel like you're going 1,000 miles an hour. But compared to the R1, just there's something about, maybe it's the wind when you peek up over and you hear the wind like fluttering past your helmet, because this starts to flex and wiggle a little bit. When you get going on this thing, it's unlike any other bike.
Yeah.
And this is just, the Busa is so raw and so just shaky and rattly that it really doesn't feel that rewarding to go fast on it, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's down to the build quality advances we've made in the last 20 years. You know, this was the peak of what Suzuki could build at the time in 1999, and this is arguably the peak of what Yamaha can build right now, Nikon notwithstanding, right? They can build a crazy three-wheeler, but this is the best they can do, and it shows. I mean, it's way nicer. I mean, the fit and finish is nicer. And it's not just because the Busa is an older bike, but you look at it stock for stock and looking at how things are buttoned up, and this is just, it's so much more. You can tell computers made this, you know what I mean? Like the cuts into the plastics, the way everything's stitched up, the arrow over here. I mean, this was the best they had in 1999, and we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, there's really no comparison between riding this at speed and riding this at speed. When you start this bike up and you give it a little rev, you just hear shakes and rattles.
Yeah.
If you start this bike up, give it a little rev, it's just all you hear is that sweet cross-plane exhaust note.
That perfect purr.
There's nothing that feels out of place on this R1.
So I think we can say objectively the R1 is a better bike.
Yes.
It's just undeniable. But is there a place for the Busa, and should someone still own one, is the question.
Yes, the Busa still has a reason to be because it is such a historical piece of motorcycling. It is an iconic symbol of speed. And for some people that's enough, honestly. They're on the Busa and they don't have to justify anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Hayabusa. Everybody, you say it to car people and they understand it.
Yeah.
The R1, everybody's like, oh, is that the little race bike? Is that the big race bike? Is that the one that BMW makes?
Yeah, you could say R1 and they could be like, oh, is that a Honda? Is that a BMW? Like, they don't have no idea. You know what I mean? But everyone knows the Hayabusa. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think like you said, there's definitely a place for it in the world. Again, it has unlimited potential for power. That's the thing. If you want to, if you are crazy, you can build this to have 300-400 horsepower if your heart so desires. You'll never get an R1 to make that kind of power.
No.
It's just not designed for that at all.
It's so finely tuned right now. It is exactly where it needs to be. Sure, you can do some of the like the de-restrictor kits and stuff and have it make just a little bit more power, but honestly, you're never gonna touch it.
No.
Those people who are unrestricting R1s, you're doing that for your own ego. You will never, ever feel it.
So it makes you wonder, bringing it back to what we said in the beginning, which one of these bikes really do itch the need for speed?
Chasing power is undeniably fun and addicting, but not all power is the same. Should you decide that a blistering top-end speed and prodigious power in the mid-range is your bag, then the Hayabusa may be your drug of choice. Maybe you want the unlimited potential that engine offers, but maybe you want to experience the ungodly top-end rush of a modern-day leader bike and have something that laughs at you as you try to approach the limit. Whatever you choose, know this: the desire for power never ceases. For those who seek to walk down the path of speed, it will never be enough. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, the R1 we featured in today's episode is a giveaway motorcycle, meaning you could win it for free. Hit the link down below to yammie.co and sign up to join our community of motorcyclists and support what we do. Our Discord seriously feels like a bike night that never ends. It's a great place to hang out. You can also check out yammiemerch.com, and every dollar you spend gets you an entry to win. After checkout, you can choose where you want your points to go by following a link. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.